given access to the new participants coming out because it has to be manually, but
Okay. So this week I got to spend 2 days with Autodesk, with the programmers, developers, project managers, basically nerdvana. It was, it was all geeky stuff, but it was all really good. Got a lot of information on primarily Inventor and Vault. And one of the questions that we get a lot is Autodesk has so many different products. Some of them are overlapping. Some of them are dissimilar. For instance, we have Vault, we have Upchain, we have Fusion Manage. The good news is they're not going away. Autodesk Vault has quite a roadmap. Some of it I can't talk about because we're under NDA, but some of the things that they have and that we'll be getting soon will be absolutely, I'm going to say incredible because of what they're doing. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about today absolutely require that you have the latest updates. And that means the Inventor 2024.1.1 update, and I think it was the same for the Vault. You have to have the latest updates to get all of the functionality that I'm showing you. For those of you who are unaware, when Autodesk releases the software, like when Autodesk Inventor and Vault came out, it was 2024, that was it. Then the first release was a .1, so it was 2024.1, then a .2, then a .3. We call those dot updates. And they're not just bug fixes, they're actually enhancements. Autodesk is increasing the functionality of the software. They're introducing new features and they're enhancing existing features. So you need to have the latest updates to get access to everything I'm going to show you today. So let me get started in here. Let's get this out of the screen over here. All right, but I do want to thank everyone today. So we are talking about the collection, primarily focused on Inventor and the Vault 2024. So this is a little sample assembly I was working with. I'm going to be focusing most of the new features and functionality with this particular assembly. So I'm trying to stay within the context of a simple design. So not everything is earth-shattering what they've done, but some of them are actually pretty handy and pretty useful. The first one is assemblies. The component patterns has been enhanced along the way. So let's bring up Inventor. Some of these I'm going to demonstrate. Some of these we're just going to talk about. And let's get into Inventor here. All right. Oh, Kim, I'm working on that for you.
Thank you.
It's just about finished.
Shooting myself.
All right. So one of the things that we do is when we do a pattern of components, so we do pattern, select the component, and typically what you do is you're selecting edges or axes. So it's not a big deal, but now we can actually select cylindrical objects, and it'll get their axis, and that'll be the direction. It'll use the axis for the direction to pattern. So we can do it in both directions. We can do it in that direction, and we can do it in this direction. I'll just flip that to the other side. So if you're in a particular assembly that doesn't have any good straight edges or axes to work with, you have cylindrical objects, you can use their axis, and it just works for both directions. Again, not earth-shattering, but they are enhancing the patterns. Okay. So this one is a small little update. It's the position method. Get back into Inventor. So I've got this little tie clip, and I want to be able to pattern them around the axis of this outside radius. So when I do pattern, and I select my component, actually I've got to select my component first, then my direction. I can now pick up the axis of this guy. So that's nothing new. But when you do your pattern, so right now, if I look at it like this, let's say I do 3, they're going to be 90 degrees between each of them. We can now set that to fitted, and I could do mid-plane, finally. And let's go 30 degrees. So I can specify fitted or incremental. So they'll be 30 degrees apart, or they'll be fitted within 30 degrees of each other. So it's just a little thing, but again, more functionality always increases the productivity of the software. Claps, oohs, and ahs are always welcome.
Thumbs up.
Right. I can't see the screen, so I'll, yeah, just vocalize
I
that.
can't get my camera to work. It doesn't matter. I can hear you.
That's all right. So in assemblies, this is also assemblies and for part files is the origin. Now, I'm not a huge fan of doing this. I don't normally do this, but you have the ability, and it's not new. You can rename the origin planes. In this example, you can see that it's, sub YZ, sub XZ. You can rename that, my XY, JD's YZ. You can rename all you want. The problem was, when you went to mirror, it doesn't matter if it's a feature or a component pattern. You can see that I renamed it to sub YZ. When you did the mirror, they added the XY and the YZ planes, the origin planes into the dialogues. This did not look at the renamed plane. Now it does. Again, not a big deal, small little thing, but it does help. So I'm going to do these features here. And I can mirror about the plane that I want. So if there's a specific plane that you use easily, a lot of times people have to think about it. Am I doing the YZ or the XY plane? You've got to look at your triad. That kind of helps. But if you rename the plane, that's always going to be your symmetrical plane. Now it'll be very clear, it'll be very easy to find what you want, when you want, and how you want. So that holds true in assemblies and part files, mirroring of features and patterns.
Hey, Jim, we have a comment from Ryan Walsh. It says, "Go back to in-person, Jim. Get me out of the office, please."
Ryan, good to hear from you. Yeah, we're trying. So I'm hoping soon we can get back to being live. I miss it. I miss it. And the other thing is we do have other offices. So I was teasing Juliana when we first started working together is I'm actually in my spare time, which is very little, I'm learning Spanish. So we're trying to do the user groups.
Oh, God.
Like once a year, I know, like once a year, maybe getting down to the Mid-Atlantic office, and then maybe once a year getting down to Columbia, and the guys will, you're going to want to pay for those tickets, right, to see me doing that. So that should be fun.
I want to.
So we're trying to get these back to being live. I just enjoy them so much more. All right. But Ryan, glad you can make it. I don't see the list of people as I'm doing the presentation, so good to hear from you. All right, so what do we got now? All right, so this is where I want it to be interactive because I need to hear from you. I need to know how many of you, if any, are using MBDs, and do you know what MBD is?
No, I don't.
It's model-based definition, and I will tell you, Autodesk has this push. They have this. I can't think of the right word, but they want to see more people getting away from drawings and getting the information associated to the files. And model-based definitions is something like this. So if I were to look at my file like this guy, let's see.
And Ryan says he doesn't know either, so.
Okay. I thought I had it open. Hang on a second. This guy right there. So what you can actually do here is you can place all of the annotations that you would put on your drawings, and you can put them directly on the model, either being a part or an assembly. So MBD there's this huge push for this. And the other benefit of this is that this information is easily distributable in step file, 3D PDF. These annotations all stay together. So if you were to put critical dimensions like this and you put them in there, so let's say that I wanted to dimension this diameter over here. So you may not have noticed this, but in your part file and in your assembly file, you have an annotate. It's not just for the drawings, it's actually for the models. And you can actually dimension. And you can do things like that. You can actually place them right in the actual model. And when you export these, they'll be there. So Autodesk was asking us, I was out with them on Monday and Tuesdays, how many people are using MBDs? And I have to be honest that I have not met one of my customers yet that's actually using it. Most of them know of it, but they have not adopted it. And so Autodesk is really pushing this strategy and this technology to get out there. I'm not sure what the hesitation is. I'm always curious to hear from the users. But what they've added is in the model-based definition. This is a new standard that I'm not familiar with. If I look at the text, they have this new envelope requirement, and it puts that along the annotation. Now, let's see, I think I can, oh, I can't get the link. But if I had the link, but it's not working in my PDF, my PowerPoint presentation. This is a new, this is a standard. It's built into the geometric tolerancing. So I'm not going to get into it, but they're focused on making sure that their software is industry-based. It's standards-based. So they keep updating the software to adapt to the new standards and the evolving standards. So this is the envelope requirement. All right. So this one is a redundancy. This is the annotation well. So this one is actually interesting. Where is my weldment? Okay. So this is not new. Well, can we get a shout out? How many people doing weldments inside of Inventor? I'm going to say mostly all of you should be doing weldments.
Yep.
Okay. So you have always had the ability to add the 3D annotations for the welds. And you'll see that under welds, you'll see the weld symbol, and you'll see them here, and we have our annotation. Sorry, I got to silence that. So what they've added is redundancy here. So if I go to annotate, we now have the ability to do weld-in symbols. And if I click over here, I can, space bar, I can do things like that. I can select the annotation plane. Let's do another one, annotation plane. There we go. And I could fill the information exactly the same as this. And so I'm looking at this like, why would I want one over the other, right? So welds have been around for a long time. They're built into Inventor. Now we have the annotation in this welds. So one of the issues is if I do a 3D PDF, the MBD definition goes with it. The welds does not. So as far as sharing, communicating, collaborating, you want all the information to be there. We can now do it with the annotation versus the actual weld symbology. So I don't know if this is going to be going away or they're going to be promoting, if you do the welds, it's going to do the 3D annotation for you. So that's still, it's up in the air on that one. So we'll see how that one shakes out. But we can now do weld symbols as annotations. And again, it's all about collaborating, having the information associated with the document all the time. So how many of you are doing 3D PDF outs or 3D PDF exports?
Nope.
Not too many? I'm seeing more and more of this, especially for collaborating. Now, for collaborating, you do have the shared views, which is not new. It's wonderful. But there are sometimes you need to capture something, save it, and give it to someone. And that's where you have the export and the 3D PDF out.
Ryan says he uses sometimes.
Ryan does, good. So it is, I'm seeing this much more common than the shared views. The biggest advantage of this is going to create a PDF file that anyone with a PDF reader can view it. Not everyone, we got some companies that are so siloed, they don't have access to the internet, so they have to depend on these annotation files. So the 3D PDF will work, and the annotation symbol will go out, be able to be viewed. The weld symbol will not. So those are some of the advantages as far as why one is used over the other. Okay. The section views, this is something I use a lot, and I see a lot of my customers using it. Very, very powerful. All right, so let's get back to here. Now, this is a little thing. This is your quick access toolbar. I always try to show little tips and tricks as I do these user group meetings. Let me show this off. So under view, you have your half section, right? So if I do half section, this is not new. We select a face so we can push and drag, things like that. But what is new is the ability, we can now rotate it. Now this is a little rotate triad. You need to be a little careful with this. I want to rotate along this horizontal plane. So I want to click on this little grab bar and I can now drag it. So a little bit more dynamics in this.
Wait a minute, show that again.
Okay. Did you say show that? I'm sorry. I think I got.
Yeah, it's, Kim said show it again, please.
Okay. Let me shut this off.
Sorry.
I'm going to pause, but I'll be right back.
Jim's giving us a half a day.
He's very generous today.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. All right. Let me undo this. Okay. So getting to the section view, one thing that I use a lot is a section view and the actual view. If I'm doing hidden lines, shaded, things like that. Commands that I use frequently, I will right click and I will add to the quick access toolbar. So if I'm in the 3D model or if I'm in a different panel, I can always get it right here. So I'm going to do half section view. I'm going to pick the face and I'm just going to click and drag it. So this is not new. The only thing that is new is the ability to rotate. When you rotate, you have the 3 axes that you can rotate around. So I'm looking for this planar one right over here. I take this guy and I can simply just drag it and rotate the section. Like that.
Are you clicking the little triangle to get that? I guess I have to play with it, but
yeah. So what they've also done, in addition to the section views, I now have the ability to edit the section view after I've already created it and make changes to it. So when I do the rotate, I'm really just clicking on the little dots to the plane that I'm interested in.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, do some crazy things.
Okay.
And then once you have it, let's say that if you wanted to go back and look at it full, a lot of times what you're doing is I create design views for different sections that I'm looking for, half section, 3/4 section, things like that. You can actually go into the section view and you can suppress it. Instead of switching from the design view, I can just suppress it and then I can go back, unsuppress it, and edit. So they gave us the ability to edit and suppress the views once we have them. Again, it's all about not having to start over. We have what we want, be able to manipulate and move on from there.
Can you, as you just turn that back on, activated it, and edited it? Yeah, edited it.
That's a lovely word, isn't it?
It's a lovely word. Can you now rotate that again?
Yeah.
Is that able to come back up again?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where did you do that?
Right in the section view. I'm sorry, right in the design view. If I right click on it,
right.
Section, I have edit and suppress.
Right, but how did you turn on the rotating triad or whatever you call that thing?
Oh, rotate.
Oh, sorry. I couldn't see where you were clicking before. Thank you.
Yeah, these little toolbars are small. I'm trying to find a way to like zoom in on the screen here and there, but if I did the Windows Plus,
yeah,
sometimes it works, but sometimes it's too much.
Yeah. Okay, all good. Thank you.
Good. Now I can't find my X. There it is.
For those who join like a few minutes ago, you will have access now to your microphone or camera if you want to participate or ask any questions. Ask Cam.
Excellent. Good. All right. So we got that. Edit and suppress. Has anyone used the new mark feature within the software? I think this came out in 2022. It's great for laser etching. You don't have to do an emboss. Emboss, depending on how many you have, increases the file size, the complexity. And the mark is actually nice because if you DXF it out to a file, which is typically what's needed in order to do the engraving, so that's what the mark feature is. So,
sorry, Ryan is saying, "Oh, that is sweet. I need this."
great. All right. So in here, I just created a little sketch and I put MicroCAD training in there.
And
It's
he's
just-
asking, where is it? So yeah,
I'm sorry.
he's asking, where is that?
Right. Showing it right now. So
Okay.
just if I was going to do an emboss, I create a work plane or create a sketch. I put the text. None of that is new. This is just a sketch, right? Sketch 2. I just put a piece of text on there. I'll get out of this. Now, what I'm going to do, instead of doing the emboss, which is over here, I'm going to use the mark, which is right here. When I select it, I select the text that I want or the geometry that I want. It doesn't have to be just text. And what you're going to see here, it's actually being pushed to the surface that I have. Now, this is being pushed linear, right? Because that's how it's set. It's projecting it directly to the surface. However, I can wrap it. And I pick the face. So the text will be wrapped around it, so it won't be stretched. It won't be truncated or anything like that. It's a little bit more font-like, better.
That's
but
sweet.
All it's, go ahead.
Like that.
Good. But this is not embossed. This is not engraved. It's marked. And then if you do your export, that'll go out into your DXF file, and it goes on a specific layer, and it's really useful for doing your engraving, text, part numbers, things like that in your components. So the mark feature is relatively new, and I think it was 22.
Will that show up in IDWs?
It does, yes. So if I think I have it already open. Thought I did. Yep, you can see it over here. I got it upside down, but you can see it in the background. It does show.
Cool.
Yep. So not a problem with that. Okay. So this is brand new. This is really exciting. What they've done here is they now have these finishes that we can apply, and I can't say an awful lot about what I saw on this week from Autodesk, but what I can tell you is that on the finish, what they've done here, I think it might be in the next update. So Vault 2024.2, that's in alpha. That should be out soon. It's got some really nice functionality. Inventor, the next update is in, I think it might be in beta, and that'll be out soon. And what they're doing is giving us the ability, if I get into this part here. So let's get back to the primary. Now we all know that we can specify material, right? Mine set to aluminum, not a big deal. But now what we can do is we can actually go into finish. What I really like about this is I can select all of these faces, and I can specify what type of finish I'm going to put on there. It might be black oxide. It might be a chrome plating, right? So many microns, things like that. You have the ability to capture the surface area, and now you have some costing and some analysis that you can actually use. And all of this information is available within the bill of materials, iLogic, it's all accessible. So if I were to heat treat this, I'm going to specify it, right? Case hardening, and I'm at 45. And what I'm going to do is export all of the parameters, because right now, if I just hit OK, what it does, it adds a finish folder in my browser. If I look at my parameters, it adds these custom parameters, the reference parameters in the actual file. It's finish for appearance, but you see finish for area, I have the area. I have all of this rich information, but how do you use it? So we all know that in Inventor, in order to get access to the parameters, you have to export them. So instead of me coming in here and checking these off, if I edit the finish, it's not going to let me do it now. I thought I did that earlier. Let me delete this. When you do the finish, heat treat, I pick all of the faces. That's what this is. Export all of them to begin with. So all of the parameters that get created will be pushed to user-defined properties, which then can be used. So now if I do, let's do case hardening, and also the appearance. Right now it's dark green. It's pretty ugly, but we'll take it like that for now. So here it is. Here's my parameters. And here's my iProperties and custom. So it pushes them everywhere that you need them. So now you have access to these bill of materials, iLogic. You have access to everything. Now, if I go to the drawing file, so this is really nice. So I can actually go into my annotation, text. All right, so some of this is not new. So if you guys have not seen it before, give me a shout out. I want to hear it. So notes. The other thing is I would create this as a custom note. I'm not typing it in all the time. So I'm going to do material. And we know that that is going to be standard iProperties. Material. Right? That's not new. But now what we have is heat treat. And finish. I can take either one. Case hardening, I have the depth and the actual range. So these are notes that'll be live and dynamic. So any change you make to the model, all of your annotations will update. And again, this is accessible through everything. Bill of materials, iLogic, it all works. So
that's great, because we'll have drawings that are or we'll have parts that are old and we won't know what we did to them heat treat wise.
Exactly.
If we do it at the model level, it's kind of the information's always there.
I've been pushing the model should store all of the information, and the drawings should just be a byproduct. It just reflects what it is. Any change you want to make, you want to go to the model. That way there you have so little chance of making errors downstream. Kim and I have talked an awful lot. I am not a big fan, unless there's a specific need, of overriding parts list. I want everything to come from the bill of materials. So if I make a change to the part, the BOM updates, the part list updates. I hate having anything static. I want everything to be live and dynamic. So it's always been a big push of mine. Now,
so if you do a coating, like a paint or a galvanizing, can you give a film thickness, and would it change the part?
No, it doesn't change the part, because that's it's a coating. It goes on top of the part. So yeah, it's not going to actually change it. But what you can use it, we got a lighting manufacturer that they're doing this whole automation. They're doing iLogic. They're doing engineer to order. They're doing ERP integration. And one of the things they need is they powder coat a lot of their product, and they do a lot of product. They need, for costing, they need surface area, and they know how thick the powder is. Now they can actually cost how much powder they need to paint each part. So that goes right into the ERP system. And this is a game changer for them. I hate using that phrase, game changer, but for them, getting that information dynamic, and if the part changes, the surface area changes, the total, total area. So the amount of paint changes dynamically, and that updates the ERP. So they're always reflecting the most accurate current information.
So what would it look like if I had, say, a 100-part assembly that gets powder coated as one piece? How would Inventor tell me, okay, you need 20 pounds of powder coat? Like, how does that look? Do you have to kind of sum it on your own from each part, or do you have to start using?
You do have to sum it on your own, because right now what you're getting is you have all the information you need. So in the finish, so if I were to, let's say, a case hardness, and then if I want to do another finish on it, if I were to do a paint, I'll do this guy here, orange paint. I have the thickness. So now I have the surface area. I know how thick it is. So now I can actually, there's some formulas. I'd have to find out the density of the paint and powder, whatever it might be. And I'd be able to just do that, the mathematics on that to get me the amount of paint that's needed for this particular part. Again, this is where iLogic comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah, very beneficial. You have the ingredients, then you just got to manipulate them to get exactly what you're looking for the end result. But there's no more guessing. There's no more, we know we need this. We're going to shoot maybe like 10% more just to make sure we have enough. We now know we know we're looking at. So now you know the quantities, and you always need a little extra anyway. So now you can do 1 or 2% more than what you need or what's being recorded, and it's going to be accurate. All right, but as I said, here's your finish. It works in iProperties. Back this up a little bit. Got that. Oh, it doesn't go on top. That should have went on top there. Come on. All right, but yep, so it works in iAssemblies, because you can actually apply finish to an assembly. So if you have a weldment and then you're applying a finish, you're painting the weldment after it's welded, you'll get that kind of information that you need. And that's great if you're doing hundreds of thousands of parts. But if you're doing one-offs, not so important. But companies like this lighting manufacturer, that this is a big deal for them, because they need this information, and they need that information in the ERP system. They can handle the orders better. They'll be able to expedite them from the sales order to engineering to manufacturing much more timely and much more accurately. So big deal for them. All right, so they've added a new parameter inside of Inventor. So parameters, add numeric. New heat treat. You now have hardness as units. So if I did Rockwell and I type in 35, I now have a new unit, a new parameter. Again, if you look at everything you can do with this, again, it's all about the automation and accessibility from the iLogic. It's everything that they're doing in the system for parameters, properties. It's accessible from the automation part of Inventor. So
that doesn't automatically fill in when you do a finish?
That doesn't. That's a new unit that you can create. The one that does fill in is when you actually do the actual finish here. This one's actually applying it to the faces. But one of the things they missed is, so I've got 39 faces. I pop a hole in this. My surface area is no longer valid. So they're going to have a new option in here for solid. They missed that. Again, Autodesk always does that. Kim will chime in at the model states when they came out in 22. They were okay, but there was a lot of missing functionality. 23, especially with the bill of materials, they really did fix it, and it's much better. Same thing here. With the finishes, really, really good, but Autodesk tends to miss a few things when they, introduce new technology. When it leaves preview and it gets into the working software, some things are missed, and this is one of those. So if you were to modify this, I only get the surfaces that I select. So if I put a hole in here, this surface is less, right? The bottom surface is less. So the ability to select the solid will be a lot better. So that's what they're getting on. So they're working on it. So that is associated to the file globally, and it will you have access it throughout.
Wait, so what do you have to do? You have to go back, remove the finish, and do it.
No, you have to add the faces. You got to add the missing faces. So right now I got 39 faces. All right, so let's do this. If I actually sketch over here, let's just do 2 rectangles. I haven't tested this yet, but that's what I was told. I take Autodesk on their word, right? Oops.
Yeah.
Rated error. Oh, I did enter. Yeah. Cut. What? I can't demo and drive at the same time. Select my page. All right. Let's see here. Oh, 2 should be through all. There we go. I actually do know how to use the software. I promise. So now if I enter my feature, you see those faces are missing. I still have 39, but if I were to do this, 43. Okay. Now I'm at 40. Yeah. So now I'm adding them.
But it would have found those initially if you had done the faces after that work.
Yeah, it's all about editing after the fact. We always want to make sure that it updates dynamically, and they miss that. So that's why selecting faces is not the best option. It is great if I'm only going to do, let's say, a chrome finish on this face. Faces is great. Yeah. But if I'm going to paste harden this part, it's going to be the whole part. It's not going to be just one face. Now you could sometimes you do induction harden certain areas, but for the most part, if I'm going to heat treat something, it's the whole part, not just a particular area.
Yeah.
So the faces is still necessary, but also a solids.
Okay. Yeah, it's almost like you want to have the finishes be able to move within the feature tree, depending on where. Like if you're doing post finishing after.
Yeah, but it's actually not in the. Yeah, that's actually a good comment, but it's actually not in the actual tree. It's
yeah, I see that. It's fixed.
Yeah, it's just listed as finishes. It goes by the selection at the time it was created. So you'd have to edit that. That's why we need the ability. Surfaces are necessary for certain situations, but solids are also most necessary. I think that'll be the most often you'll be using is solids versus surfaces. So, but that might be in the next update.
When you apply a finish, you can select faces that you don't want finished, I assume, or remove faces.
Yes. Yep. Yep. So I can edit this. Pick it here. These are and I can remove that face. And that's why we need that shading, so that we can see what's the finish is being applied to. And that's where, when you get into this, actually, let's get into the properties. You see finish area, appearance, comment, faces, all of that, right? But when I did a heat treat, why was it, olive? Why were these certain descriptions coming in? Like it's the finish description. That's upper lowercase. You may not like that formatting, right? There's also a short description. This one does not have the thickness in it. So where's this information coming from? It all goes back to the styles. So in the design data folder, right? We're all familiar with the design data. These are your styles. They added a new thing called XML, and in there is a finish XML. And if I open this, now it's just an XML file. You can use Notepad, XML editor. I'm using Visual Studio. It's just an XML file, and you can make any changes you want to this. So right now you're seeing barrel finishing. Is the appearance. It's using a blue wall paint glossy. Barrel finishing, and then if you get to the heat treat, where are you? That's color. Super finishing. Here's your thickness. So instead of being 50 microns, maybe you want to use, 2000s or 3000, something like that. So you can adjust these values here. So the next time you use it, it'll have your settings, your information, your descriptions, your short descriptions. You can put what you want in there. You can add new finishes, new things to this document. But once again, this is an issue we always have with Autodesk, is when you have customization, you can't do it in the application. You got to use these extraneous files, like an XML document. Or when I get into the vault, some of the administrative things that we do, most people, they have ECO notifications in the job processor. We know the job processor by default is every 10 minutes. Everyone says, well, how do I change that? Well, you have to go to web.config. You have to find it in that little config file, which is like an XML, and change it there. It would be really nice if you could have a better interface to make the changes in the software. So Autodesk is working on that. I can't say any more than that, but they are working on it. So this right here is an extraneous file that you have to get into. It's really not different from
iLogic.
not so much iLogic, but if I go into the mark, right, this is an XML file. If I open this up, these settings are available within the styles within Inventor. However, the finish isn't. So I think it'll get there, but when they always introduce new technology, they always come up a little short and they leave more room for improvement. So most of you, when I upgrade your systems, I'm always getting into the styles. I have to migrate it. And one of them that's in there is you're going to see balloons, dimensions. That's a biggie. These are all your dimension styles, the units. No one edits the styles like this. What do? Right? So if you're in a drawing file, you do manage, you go to styles editor. I think eventually we'll see the finish in here. We just don't see it yet. So I think eventually that's where it'll be. Because expecting users to be fluent in XML editing is unrealistic.
C.
Yeah. All right. So that's that. Okay. Now. Rep clouds.
Oh, I hate those.
Come on. Tell me how you really feel.
A lot.
Yeah. So this is in tech preview mode. And so under annotation, we have red clouds, and it's not bad. You just kind of click, 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 and create. It does wrap around the text, doesn't obscure it. You can move it. Everything updates. Put it where you want it. You can add as many as you want. It does go by a standard by layer, which you can control if you want it to be heavy, thin, dashed, however these clouds, however you want them to look. If I want more control, I can right click on it and I can add a vertex. It allows me just to move it around and change it. So Rep Cloud, yay, it's in the system now. All right. So text annotations, you now have you have access to the sheet name so that you can populate that in an annotation if you choose to. Again, like I showed you earlier with the note that I created, you can use all the different properties, and the new one they added was the sheet name. So if you do name your sheets differently, I typically sheet 1, sheet 2, and sheet 3, but some of you will rename your sheets. That information will go on there. See diagram on sheet name, and when you plug it in, like sheet 5 is whatever the sheet name is, you can now annotate that to the users. So it's nice to have the sheet name to be built into these annotations. Okay. This came up, pick on Kim again, not that long ago. How do you delete the origin indicator in a view, right? So if you have annotations, ordinate, or you're doing things like that, or you're doing whole tables, you have to put an origin. But if you delete the annotations, you delete the whole table, the origin stays. You can hide it, you can't delete it. Now you can delete it. Yay.
Yay.
Yeah. This one's nice. If And most of you are doing filtering parts lists. I do it all the time. If I have got a large assembly and I only want to show a small subset of the bill of materials in my parts list, I will filter maybe for a design view or items that are ballooned. But when you're looking in the drawing, when you're looking at a parts list, am I looking at everything or a subset? You're now going to see this little filter symbol to let you know that that parts list on the drawing is filtered. It's just a little flag, just a little glyph. It's about communication and understanding everything about the drawing, what's going on. Good? As I said, some of these things I don't think need to be demonstrated, but if you want me to, I'll be happy to. But that's just a little glyph. All right, so how many of you use Inventor Studio? That many. So Inventor Studio is kind of a weird little add-in for Inventor. We talk about visualization and rendering, photorealistic. Inventor Studio just never comes to mind. Everyone's always thinking ray tracing or 3ds Max. Inventor Studio had a limitation. It could only do 4K resolution, 4096 by 4096. It now supports up to 16K by 16K. So I ran this last night with Inventor Studio. Not bad. I didn't put a lot of textures on the model, but that's from Inventor Studio. That's the best image I've ever seen out of Inventor Studio.
How long did it take?
I was hoping nobody asked that question.
You know
Actually,
me.
it wasn't too bad. I think it was about 15 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad.
Wasn't terrible. I only did the one frame. I didn't do much with the lighting. I did have my reflections turned on, so it looks fairly good. But I didn't do an awful lot to the assembly either. But it wouldn't add that much more time to it. But about about 15, maybe 20 minutes to create that. And I wasn't at 16K. I think I was at 10,000 by 5,000 resolution. So, but to me, this is good. I could never get this kind of quality within Studio before. Most of us are.
I think that's why I never used it.
Yeah, it was always lacking. But when we get into something like this, some of you, when you go into the view, you put the reflections on, put the shadows on, put the ground planes on. Come on. There we go. So you're starting to see that. And then ray tracing is grayed out because you have to go into your visual styles, realistic. And one thing about the GPU, so Autodesk has added this as a preview, but it's getting into the system, is these IBLs, these image-based lighting. Right now I'm set for 2 lights. When you notice that image I showed you was in a warehouse, that's image-based lighting. So if I go to my old warehouse, that's where it is. But you can see how tiny it is now. That trowel is not that small. So in order to work with this in the image-based lighting, if any of you have done any work with this at all, you have to go into your settings. And basically, it just puts a dome around your model, and it's a certain size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this down a bit. Now so I'm not increasing the size of the model. I'm decreasing the size of the image-based lighting scene that's in there, and it just works better. See, I'm seeing the top. It looks good. So basically, you're just getting into your IPLs, into your settings. I'm going to bring this down a little bit more. And that's it, your IPLs. If your ground plane isn't right, there's ways of manipulating it, but the Inventor Studio is much better. Okay. So this one's a big deal. Navigation, rotating. How many times do you rotate a large assembly and it goes off your screen,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they've added a new option. Use nearest model point for orbit, right? And you can control this. Right now, we know that to rotate the model, it's a shift plus your middle mouse button, MMB, right? So let me shut this stuff off. If I hold down the shift key and I click to rotate it, and I zoom in, and I click to rotate it, that pivot point is being adjusted dynamically as I rotate around. So no more will it go off your screen. So they finally fixed that.
Can you show that one more time, Jim? I'm sorry.
Yeah, all I'm doing is holding the shift key down
Oh, that's
and
it?
using my middle mouse button. I'm just doing the standard rotate. The only thing they've done is that whenever you click, it's adjusting the
center point.
the pivot point. Now, if you're doing a 3D mouse, that's irrelevant. That's my 3D mouse right now. Completely irrelevant. It's only if you're doing the orbit using the shift middle mouse button, they're updating the pivot point dynamically. So no more when you rotate it, it's going off the screen. Big complaint. Okay. That's it for Inventor. Good? What do you think?
Yeah, some interesting points.
Yeah, they're getting there. Now, there are some things that are coming soon. I just can't talk about them, especially on the Vault side. What they've done in Vault, not major, but some really good things. And some of it is more for administrators than it is for users. So let's take a look at Vault. So the first one is copying a folder. So you might think about that. What does that mean? So if you have a folder structure for a project and you want to duplicate that, some companies will always have, like say, project. Another project, they'll have parts or components, drawings, assemblies. They always have those same folders all the time. They always have to create those folders every time. We can now actually do that. Also, when you do the copy, let's get into Vault. I think I have. No. Okay, I forgot where I put it. Anyway, so let's go under MTC. So I'm going to create a new folder. Stuff getting old. I can't remember where I put those. So I'm going to do components. Subfolder. And more for assemblies. And let's get rid of this. And we'll create one more for drawings. So right now these folders are empty. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take these two files. I'm going to change their state just so I can move them. So that's going to go to the drawings. And that's going to go to the components. So I have data, and it doesn't matter how much data that you have in there. So this is a folder structure that I like. I want to always use. So when you select it, copy folder. So this is going to copy it. It's going to create a brand new folder and keep the structure, but it's not going to copy any files. So if I make this MTC-2, okay, it's going to put it in the same folder, or I could redirect it. So I'm going to put this over to a different location. I'm going to put this under Designs, Demo, and I'll put this in my Samples. So it's going to create the structure underneath the Samples folder. So I can create that structure, copy the structure, and put it anywhere I want, whenever I want. Now, when I do that, I have the ability to include the subfolders or not. I can also include permissions. Some folders have access permissions with Vault Professional. And again, I forgot to precede this with the actual start of the presentation is this is Vault Professional only. So you have permissions and you have properties. These get copied with it as well. So if I had read-only permissions for certain groups, that's how it will be locked down. So here we go, working folder. It's going to get it to the working folder. Oh, we'll talk about this in a second. Actually, I'm going to shut this off for now. And I'm going to hit copy. Done. So under samples, I see the MTC2 and I see my substructure, right? This is great. However, if I go to samples and I go to my working folder, it's not in here. MTC2 doesn't exist. In order to get that on my local drive, in the past, we have to do the right click, go to working folder. Because a get, a normal get, will only get folders that have data in it, will not get empty folders. So that's been an issue. So what we could do now is right click on it, get folders. It'll create, it'll take the structure that I have and it will create that structure on my local drive. So if I do get folder, that's it. Now if I go to my working folder, it creates a structure for me. So that's what we have now. Copy folder, we can copy the structure. We have get folder, which brings it to your working folder so that you have all the necessary folders when you start creating your files in order to place them. That make sense?
Could be useful.
Yeah. This has been a big deal when people have seen it. We were doing some XML editing with Power Jobs, and Cool Orange would do that same functionality. So Autodesk took it and built it in. But now if I do it all in one, if I do the copy folder, so this would be MTC-3. If I do the working folder, so once I copy it, it'll also get it to my working folder at the same time. And done. Now if I go to my working folder, refresh. It did not. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't. My bad. I didn't move it. Empty right there. I didn't put the samples like I did my first time. I didn't remember that. But it is right there. So it'll copy the folder and create them on your local workspace at the same time. So they're unifying those commands. So that's really handy administratively. So when you're starting a new project, most companies, this question always comes up on a discovery. We want to create the necessary folders for a new project. You can now do that, copy it, and populate the local, and then now you start to populate those with the necessary files as you go. That's the get folder. Show that to you. But now what we have is the ability. Now this is Vault Professional. When we release a document, we have the ability to create a PDF file. They've added new functionality. We can create a DXF and we can create STEP. When you do a DXF, it can be of the drawing and if it's a sheet metal part. So you can do things like that now. So here's a little sheet metal part. I'm using Vault Professional. And over here, I'm not sure if you can see, it's kind of small. These files are released. It's Rev A, and it's a sheet metal part. So if I want to make any changes to this, we know that we change the state to WIP. Put this over to here. Oh, I got some jobs sitting. I gotta remove those. All right. So I'm going to change my state to whip. I'll open up the model and I'll just do something real simple in here. Just put a little cutout over here. Good enough. All right, here it is. All right, so I got some changes to it. Check this in. Okay. So in Vault, those of you that have worked with me on your systems, when you look at the behaviors and the life cycles, we know that when we go from work in progress to release, or we go from for review to release, or we go from quick change to release, we want those PDFs to be created. That's what we've been doing since basically Vault Professional has been able to do that with files. So when I go into this particular transition and I look at the actions, you can see I can see synchronized properties. What they've added is the ability now to add the different formats. So I can do the DWF, the DXF, flat pattern DXF, PDF, and STP. So that's where that's configured. Oh, I gotta release those documents. Once I change the state of these files to be released, that means I'm ready. I'm ready to distribute the different types of files that I need. Drawings, PDFs, models, DXFs, things like that. All I have to do is release it. It goes into the Vault's job queue, right, to be processed. And then you can't see it. I have it actually running on my mouse. I've got a different computer that runs what's called a job processor. This is what it looks like. So this job processor just sits on a different computer, and every 10 minutes, like we talked about earlier, by default, it's every 10 minutes, it looks at the Vault. So we have to now wait between 1 and 10 minutes for this to run, and then we'll see those jobs get created. So what we don't want to do, we don't want to wait. So we pause and we resume. That'll push those jobs into getting processed. And it's going to do everything. It's going to synchronize the properties so the rev matches. It's going to create the necessary files and bring them into Vault. It's creating the DXF right now. It'll create, if it's a sheet metal part, which it is, it's going to create it of the flat pattern. It's going to create a step file, PDF file of the drawing, and so on. And those files will be created and brought into Vault. And the only thing I had to do as a user was release the documents. Okay. So that's done. Let's take a look at it. So here's the PDF file that got created. It's also released. It matches the same rev. Here is a DXF file. It's released, same rev. And here is a step file. So this is all rev controlled as well. If I go through another iteration, another revision, go to rev C, they'll all match accordingly. So it's creating all of these necessary files, and it's taking that, out of the hands of the CAD operator. We need to do them. We typically forget to do them for every file. So the only thing we have to do now is release it, and we're creating all of this automation in the background. Cool. One caveat: that does not work with the item master. It only works with file management. I did have that conversation with Autodesk as far as the gaps, the overlaps and the gaps in technology between the item master and file management. They're aware of it, although I didn't get any good solutions to it. Okay. So this is more administratively, backups. A lot of you have massive data in your vault. And the backups, well, Relex is one of those. The backup took 12 hours. We improved it. We got it down to 6 or 7 hours, but they still take a long time. And the reason for that, it's backing up the data, the databases in the file store. It's also validating. It's making sure that every file that's supposed to be in the vault is in the vault, is in the actual file store. It's there. So that takes a lot of time. What they've done, because Autodesk is well aware of this, I heard some horror stories over this past week, is that there's one company, so Kim's, your backup took, when I first started, it was 12 or 13 hours. This one company, the backup takes 1 month. Just to back up their files, their databases and file store. These companies have 20, 30 terabytes of data, and it's just unrealistic to do these backups. It just takes too long. So they now have the ability to back up just the databases, not the file store. Databases is a percentage, maybe like 1%. So if you've got 1 terabyte, the databases might be 50 gigabytes. So that backup is pretty quick. However, the file store, that's still your responsibility to make sure that data is backed up in case of a catastrophe. So this is good, this is helpful, but this is more administratively. If you are having space requirements, you got some issues, we can talk about the different backup strategies that are available starting with 24. Nothing to demonstrate here, but we have more capabilities with it. Okay, I think I spelled that right, retired. Inventor View is gone. No more Inventor View. If you're viewing files, you're viewing the DWF with the built-in viewer, or you're using Inventor read-only. So that needs to be installed on other computers outside of engineering. So Inventor View, stop looking for it. It's not there. It doesn't exist. It's not coming back. Okay? Hopefully all of you are enforcing unique file names. The problem is Autodesk violates that, both in the design data, templates, certain areas where they do have duplicate file names. We now have the ability to control that a little bit better. So in Vault, as an administrator, only an administrator, in the Vault settings, when you look at that, define unique file names, this is where we can control that. I can enforce it, and I can say files with a certain extension, ignore the restriction. Files in a certain folder, ignore those restrictions. So I'll typically add my design data folder. There are duplicates there. And maybe extensions of, PDF. I can add that extension. So you have control over this enforcing of unique file names, much better than we did before. Okay. And that's it. So any questions on anything that you saw?
Repeat.
It'll be better the next time I do it.
Was this recorded?
I don't know, Ileana?
Yep, this is recorded. You will all get the on-demand recording once it's over.
Good.
Mhm.
Let's bring this over here. All right. Thoughts, comments, criticisms?
Hmm. Just like anything else, you got to experiment and play.
You do. And again, there's some new updates coming soon. They're looking really good. 2024.2 for Vault is going to have some really necessary things in it. I hate to keep saying this, but those of you that are familiar with Project Thunderdome from the past, that went away. Company bought it, and then you had to reach out. It used to be free, and I think it still is, but you have to reach out to something AMC Bridge, but they're looking at customizing it and getting consulting services to modify it. With that being said, what was that?
What is this?
Project Thunderdome.
I don't know what that is.
You don't know what that is? Okay.
No.
So it was somebody who was a Mad Max fan, who was also a programmer at Autodesk, created this add-in for Vault called Project Thunderdome. I'm not making this up. This is real.
Somebody with ACDC?
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of Mad Max fan.
Oh.
Thunderdome.
I was thinking Thunderstruck.
Oh, no, Thunderdome, the old Mad Max movies with Mel Gibson. But anyway, what it allowed you to do is to save the settings. Like if you had your certain grid layout that you liked, and I wanted, let's say JD and I are working together, I want him to have the same environment that I have. Save searches. If I'm looking for files that are WIP, files that are released, I want JD to have the same searches that I use. We can push and pull that information across. So if I make a lot of changes, the next time JD logs in, it'll say, "Hey, the system's been updated. You want to see the new? Do you want me to set the requirements or set your grid to the new requirements?" You can say yes or no, and we'll update your grid situation, your columns, spacing, searches. All of that will come through before let's say you get another computer. You can actually back up your configuration and then install a new computer and then restore your settings. So that was Project Thunderdome. It was about more for the UI, about standardization and pushing it to other users. That is coming, and I think I can talk about that because I think that's pretty. It's in the code, and I think it's pretty sure that we'll be getting it. We'll get that kind of capability inside of 2024.2. So we'll be able to do more things like Project Thunderdome, where unifying the UI settings in the Vault from user to user. The other problem is when you upgrade, everyone loses their saved searches, their shortcuts, although that stuff is missing. So this will be retained, and it's server based.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. Especially a lot of companies ask for unity between all the different systems. When I log on to JD's computer or Leon's, I want to see the same information, the same setup, the same way. We can now do that. Well, we will be able to do that soon. Any other questions? But with that, I don't have anything else to show.
Okay.
Brian says that thank you so much. And if we don't have any other questions, I want to thank Jim. This was amazing. This was very useful. I think everyone got something out of it. And as a reminder for everyone, you can check the MicroCAD website for future webinars. And as I said earlier, this on-demand recording will be sent out to all attendees after the webinar ends. So with that, I want to remind you all that if you want to learn any of these topics in detail, you can always take a custom training with Jim or Jose. and we'll get you going. So I want to thank Jim so much, and thank you everyone for attending and participating, especially. Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Ryan, and all of you who asked questions. Thank you.
I do want to say one thing before we end it is we have another user group coming up in December. We're trying to get that one a little bit sooner because that one's going to be a case study. It's not going to be so much a topic. It's going to be functionality that was done for a particular company that I think will be useful and worthwhile for others to see and to benefit from. So we're going to be doing a case study in December.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining today.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye now.
It's a great presentation as always. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.